Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this discussion on mental health and well-being in the music industry. My name is Aidan. I'm a Senior Health and Welfare Officer at Help Musicians. And together with our colleagues at Bapam and Music Support who are joining us in this discussion, we all see the daily reality of poor health in the music industry every day in the course of our work. It's never been more important to be able to recognise when there might be a problem with your health and where you can go and what options you have if there is. And those are the things we really hope you all get out of this session this afternoon. This is going to equip you with information and practical tools to support your health and well-being from all three organisations represented here today. It's going to include a guided practice session with Bapam, so you'll leave with new skills to help you maintain positive mental health and well-being. And there's also going to be a demonstration of the Thrive Wellbeing app from Music Support, so you'll also gain a new resource to be able to support you and your well-being. Throughout the session, we're going to signpost to other sources of support, and there'll be a chance at the end to ask questions of everyone who's on the panel today. So just quickly, a little bit about us at Help Musicians and who we help. We're here to support professional musicians, so that's people over the age of 18 who earn the majority of their income either from creating, performing, composing or producing music, and also from some roles which require a high level of musical skill to carry out. So DJs, sound engineers, music therapists are just a few examples of the demographics that we support. And we provide a lifetime of support when it's needed most in challenging circumstances and aiming to make a meaningful difference to musicians, both in the short term and the industry in the long term as well. So myself and the other speakers who you've got today have all been part of discussions like this on mental health in the music industry for a little while. And it's something that I'm sure a lot of you also will see in sort of your day-to-day work. But just to give a little bit of background, a couple of years ago, we had a study with the University of Westminster, and that was called Can Music Make You Sick? There were two parts to it, and it was looking into mental health and well-being across the music industry. The first part was a survey of 2,211 self-selected respondents who worked in various roles sort of all across music. So a range of different roles, also different demographics. There was a 51-49 gender balance. And we also had a really good spread of genres and people at different stages of their careers, as well as living and working in different parts of the UK. And coming out of that survey, 71% of respondents said that they'd experienced either anxiety or panic attacks over the course of their career in music. And just under 69% self-reported having experienced depression. And of those, 30% said that they were either very likely to or already had sought help. So I hope that sort of underlines hopefully the benefit of sessions like this, where you can find what help is out there and how you can access it. There was a second part to that survey where we took 26 of those respondents and conducted interviews with them. So I'm just going to run through quickly a few key themes that came out of that. The sense that music is so integral to someone's sense of self. If you work in it, it's really a way that people define themselves. And I think that's something just from the conversations I've had with the people we support that people have found really difficult recently with, with coronavirus, live music pretty much, not having happened for months. Losing that is a really big loss for people. The music industry, even before all this, was unpredictable enough and a precarious enough environment in which to try and, make a living and push forward in your career. That's obviously got even harder now. And that, unpredictable and competitive nature of the business can, really affect one's sort of self-belief and self-esteem. And we found also in these interviews that a lot of musicians and people working in the industry could be very self-critical, and that's not helped by being in an environment where you're receiving pretty much constant feedback, whether it's live or in person and on social media. People who we conducted these interviews with highlighted that they felt the need, especially with a lot of people working freelance in the industry, they felt a need to have to be sort of on 24/7 and unable to take a break. Especially, if you're freelance, you take a week off, you're not getting paid. So that's a really difficult thing. People highlighted how their relationships, whether it be partners, with their family, with their friends, who may well also be their colleagues within music, could be affected by their work, and if they felt perhaps a little bit dependent on people like that, sometimes people highlighted that that could lead to feelings of guilt. And we also had various reports within those interviews of sexual harassment, discrimination, bullying, and coercion being things which people had come across in their careers. So this research, as I say, took place a couple of years ago. There's all these factors which is identified, which make music a uniquely difficult environment in which to maintain positive mental health and well-being. And if you sort of think about the issues that have come up in the last few months with coronavirus, with the lack of work, with the sort of general uncertainty across the board, then there's even more going on now, which can potentially negatively impact one's health and well-being. Not to mention the financial insecurity, which a lot of musicians are now facing. I just want to very quickly mention our coronavirus hardship fund, which provides financial assistance to people who are facing significant hardship in those groups I mentioned earlier as a result of the lack of work in music recently. There's information about that on our website, which is helpmusicians.org.uk, and there are some guidelines on there as well. So if you're either looking to apply yourself or you point someone in the direction of it, please do encourage them to read the guidelines so they have the best chance as possible as getting their application through first time. I'm aware that that might not necessarily apply to everyone who's listening today. So I just wanted to make clear that throughout the whole session, we're going to be pointing you in the direction, not only of what we can do as organisations ourselves, but also other potential sources of help and support. So I really hope everyone gets something useful out of this. That's it from me for now. It's time to move on with the rest of the session. Before Eric and Joanne from Music Support demonstrate the Thrive app, I'm going to hand over to Claire Cordeau from Bapam.
Very much, Aidan. It's great to be here. And I mean, it is a sad fact that it's such a key issue. Mental health, such a key issue, and I think of some of the things that Aidan has been pointing out, it is actually more common that people in the industry will have a mental health problem than not have a mental health problem. And so what we're going to try and cover in this session is what you can do to try and keep yourself well as what you can do when you're not feeling well, so that you hopefully will go away with some of those skills. I'm from Bapam, the British Association for Performing Arts Medicine. We are a clinically led organisation, so we concentrate on the health part of this. And one of the things we've been doing is running a number of different health education sessions, and Ellis has been contributing to them, so I'm so pleased that she's here today. And the thing I think we've taken from that is that in the same way as to keep yourself physically healthy, you need to be physically fit, you need to do exercise. Actually, the same is true for mental health, and being able to develop a mental exercise that you routinely use can help you in your day-to-day, but also you have something then to draw on in times of crisis. So with that, I'm going to ask Ellis to start. I'll just give her a little introduction. We're so pleased she's here today. She's a performance psychologist, and she's fantastically well qualified. She has a BEMAS from the Royal College of Music, but she also has a diploma in drama and theatre. So she covers the whole gamut of performing arts. She's got a master's in performance science. She's got a PhD in performance psychology. So, I mean, she's totally the right person to be talking to you about this. She's got an enormous amount of experience, and I know from people who've been training with her how valuable that's been. So she's going to run a kind of guided practice session with us to get us going and help us to keep healthy. So there's no pressure there. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you very, very much, Claire. That was a very generous introduction. I was just sitting here thinking, is that me, really? But thank you. It's very, very kind and generous of you. So as Claire has said, I will be focusing on the guided practice element of this, and I'm a performance psychologist. So what that means in practical terms is I will be looking slightly more at the performance and well-being aspect of things rather than the clinical. So that's important to understand, that we will be talking more about, what Bapam can do in clinical terms, so that everybody understands that what I'm about to do here is more to do with strategies for performing well and strategies to help you to navigate a performer life. So this would run alongside any clinical help that somebody might need. So I just want to make that wanted to make that clear before we start. So first things first, if we're talking in a context of performer well-being, maximal performance output, something that surprises a lot of people is when performance psychologists come in and say, do you want to work on performance, or are you concerned about performer well-being? As if they're two separate things. Now, of course, they're not two separate things because they all matter. You need to feel good to, keep going with your career so you don't burn out. But it doesn't necessarily mean that feeling good will lead to good performance, or that feeling bad will lead to bad performance. And what often goes wrong is that people have, for example, performance problems, and they try and use a well-being solution to fix a performance problem, or they try and use a performance strategy to fix a well-being problem. And that's what this guided session will be about today. So I'm going to give you two strategies. One of them is going to be based slightly more around well-being and imagery for well-being, and the other is going to be more specific about preparing for performance, so it's slightly more specifically performance-oriented. Very briefly, we only have about 20 minutes today before the Q&A, so I hope you do have questions. If you have questions later on, my details, I'll leave them, and then you can all contact me later on as well. When we're under stress as a performer, especially in times like this, or when we're in a pre-performance situation, even if you're not somebody who performs anymore, but you're doing something that is very stressful to you, something that you want to achieve, we need both in life. Obviously, it's tempting to think, I want to feel good all the time, and I want to be relaxed, and I want to meditate, and I don't want to do anything else in life. But what happens in practice is, often people come back and say, I've done all this relaxation, and I feel like I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve, because where's the fire? Where are the strategies to actually help me have a fulfillment as well? So that's why I want to look at both. Typically, when we get very frustrated or when we get very anxious, when stress goes up, our need to control goes up as well. And what happens in our brain then, without realizing it, is we tend to start focusing on very specific small things. And those specific small things can be anything from, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to do that fingering? What's the first word in this song that I'm about to sing? So we'll start to automatically focus shifts under pressure, and it tends to narrow down a lot. So it tends to go to little things that draw attention, that are not really great for performance, and that are very draining. So that's the word I want you to remember. Stress-induced focus tends to drain you. So the first exercise that I want to do together with you is a focus and imagery-based exercise to get you out of that really narrow focus on your problems to seeing the bigger picture again. If you've got a pen and paper with you, that would be really good. If you don't, we can also do this mentally with imagery. The reason I mentioned pen and paper is it might be a little bit easier for some people who haven't done imagery training yet to write it down rather than imagine it straight away, because we often forget this, but in practice, many people fantasize. They're not actually doing imagery. And fantasizing is nice because it's low effort. We just sort of wish I was this, I wish I was that. But imagery training is really very much about training your mind's ability to imagine things exactly as they're about to happen and how you want them to happen, so that it feels like you've done it before. That's the real purpose of imagery. And to train you, I'm going to walk you through this exercise, and I'm going to do it with you as well. It's an exercise based on vision. And I like to use vision, especially with performers, because vision is such a big thing in creative arts. I think if I had to pinpoint one single thing that will pull most people through a really rotten time in their well-being, as well as really difficult times in a performance life, it would be focus on vision above all else. Why? Because if the going gets tough, these are the kinds of things that keep you going. It's very energizing to focus on vision, and it's good for you to practice refocusing from very narrow to broad and vision-based. So if you've got a pen and paper, I'd like you to just either write down or imagine, if you can do it visually, imagine the characteristics of yourself that you would describe as your ideal self. So just imagine, what would your ideal self look like? What kind of people would this person be around? What kind of things would this ideal self be doing? Maybe even what kind of foods would this person be eating? So I just want you to picture it in a very broad way. So you don't have to get very specific. I just want you to have an image of yourself in an environment that you think, that's where my ideal self would be. That's the kind of person that my ideal self would behave as. So just have a couple of characteristics that you maybe write down or that you think of. It can be very vague. So I'm doing it with you in my mind now, and I can already see a very sort of nice landscape and a person who's just very nice to everybody who passes by. It's got to mean something to you. It's got to mean ideal self to you. Yeah? Now, in the second column, I just want you to imagine what it means to be successful. But I want you to try it in a very broad sense. So a narrow sense of success would be, I've got to win that competition, or I have to sign that sales contract, or I've got to, that's very narrow. So I want you to try and think, what's a very broad, integrity and meaning-based success element that I would like to be in that picture? Okay, and it can be very vague. If you don't have anything, that's fine. It's just to help you think. Okay, so broad definitions of success. In my mind, just as an example, a broad definition of success is somebody who's very generous, who does very well, who does something out of pure integrity, and they do it so well that they can be generous to other people. So they can, give a lot of money to charity, or they can. That's an example in my image. Now, the third one I want you to think about, just to help you get that vision. What do you care about meaning to others? So relate it to other people. What do you care about meaning to other people through this art, through the thing that you were initially worried about? So the other perspective, really changing their perspective from I need to do this narrow thing to how do I connect this to the outside world? How do I shift this to a broad focus? Now, those three things, there are other questions you can ask yourself, but I've chosen those three just to help you think and to get that image in your mind, okay? It can be broad, non-specific, but that image that you've now built in your mind is something that you can think about. And when you think about that image, you don't have to analyze it, but all the information is in there. It just reminds you of that vision, and you don't have enough information, specific little things to start distracting yourself with. So for me, that image, like I said, it's a landscape, and I just see myself, being very nice to all the people passing by. There's a sun, and the sun represents empowerment to me. There's it's by the river, and there's boats in the river, and the boats represent, going somewhere. Not necessarily travel, but as in, doing the next thing, keep learning. If I think of that image, I'm immediately reminded of vision, and I cannot keep worrying. Now, when you have that picture, and you will refine it in your own time, because this is not enough time to, really walk you through it in an hour, but refine this type of thinking, this broad visionary focus in your own time. And when you've got that image, I want you to use it when you're going to do something in your day-to-day life, when you feel that you're stressed and you want to reconnect again and feel a bit more grounded. Imagine that thing and imagine it's all been achieved. And then go about your business. Whatever it was that you were going to do, go and do it then. Think of the vision. It's all been achieved. And get on with daily life. So this is a very short, very powerful, vision-based exercise to just shift you from that cycle of narrow and specific focusing on problems to seeing the bigger picture. And usually when people shift, the impact is immediate. All right? Now, this one you can use during performance sometimes, but I would classify this more as a day-to-day well-being related exercise. Now I'm going to go the other way, the complete other way. I'm going to teach you an imagery technique that follows a very strict performance model. And I want you to predominantly take away from this how different the types of focus and the types of imagery feel. That's what I want to show you. The first one will be really good for well-being and for focusing on big visionary things when you need to. The one we're about to do now is specific to learning and performance preparation. So this is much more targeted, much more strategic. And for this one, I do not want you to feel relaxed. Okay, so I might get you a little bit nervous as I'm walking you through this one, and that's exactly what I want you to do. I need you to be a little bit nervous to do this, to do this well. It's based on what's called the PETLAP model. You don't have to remember that name. I'm going to walk you through what each of the letters stand for. And just as an example, I'm going to take, let's say, the 5 or 7 minutes leading up to a performance. Let's say you're going to do something, you're scared of it, it could go wrong, it's important for your career. And we want to exercise in such a way that you feel you've done it before. That when the moment comes, right before you're about to walk on stage, or right when you start to play, that you feel like, I've done this before. That's what imagery really is about. So can we train ourselves to prepare in advance so well that it feels like, actually, I've already done this, I got this. Yeah. So I'm going to go with the minutes leading up to the performance, from the moment you're backstage all the way to when you start to play the first note, because that is actually the bit where anxiety peaks the most. And this has been replicated, if you're a nerd like me, in different performance domains. So it's the moment before you're about to go on that people struggle the most. And once the music gets going, once you're in it, it tends to come down slightly. So I want you to imagine that you're there right before you're about to walk on. How are you feeling? What's the physical element of this? I feel anxious just describing this to you. Like, I can already feel my heartbeat going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And that's good. That's good. Because for imagery, you want to have exactly what you're about to feel. This is not the time to be going, Zen, I want to bring down all of my anxiety. No, I need you to feel exactly like you will feel and practice doing what you will do. Biology will always have the upper hand. You are going to get nervous. Maybe a little bit, maybe very, but you will get nervous. So this is, by the way, also why strategies that you practice when you're relaxed, like yoga, meditation, breathing exercises, if you're completely relaxed, they feel really good, but you cannot achieve that same sense of relaxation before a performance. And that's when a lot of people, performers, tend to freak out, because they go, oh, when I did it in practice, it was fine, and now it's not working anymore. So we're going to go with that. The first is the physical element. How are you going to feel? You can feel your heartbeat. What are the symptoms that you specifically as a performer experience? My hands used to go clammy. What are the thoughts that come up in your head? If they're negative, good, okay. We know that we've got negative thoughts and we're going to do something about it, but just feel exactly what happens. Where are you going to be? All right, so we now feel all the symptoms that you usually feel. Where are you? Are the floors creaky? What's the temperature? Exactly what kind of environment is this? And you want to get this so real that you can almost smell it. You know, I always felt like theaters have this smell. You know, I don't know how to describe it, but it's theater smell. And it matters to imagery that you've got theater smell in your mind. What is the task? What are the task relevant things that I'm going to have to focus on to pull off this performance? Are there moments where I need to think of my posture, my fingerings? Or I just got distracted by a comment. What does this say? This session? Oh, bless you. So, task. What are you going to think of when? So, for example, that vision thing, you can use that in performance, but when? When is it best for you to start thinking about this? Yeah. There are sometimes bits where you have to think in a very specific task-related way. You have to think, oh, you know, put your thumb here, because otherwise the next bar is going to not go well. There will be moments when you need to think of very specific things. There will be moments when you need to think of impression, the audience, communication. What is the task? What are you going to think of when? Timing. Most performance, even if you're not a musician, we have a rhythm in life. If I start talking to you, there's a rhythm in how I talk to you. And I can start to really, you know, rush my things and just say, okay, I'm just going to go and get the ideas out and just, you know, tell them what I want to tell them. But it's going to be very different if I pace it differently. Timing is a great strategy to start off on the right foot, because everything in life has a rhythm. And my music teacher, I had a really, really good music teacher at one point who said to me, before you start, imagine you've already played that bar. Imagine you played it again, and then imagine that you just joined on the third time. And that's a form of actually imagery as well, but it also combines the timing element. How am I going to get started? So introducing rhythm for some reason puts us in line. It can be as simple as going 1, 2, 3, go. There's a reason why we have this in culture, by the way, the 1, 2, 3, go thing. It's to get ready, but also to set yourself into that tempo. What's the tempo of the piece? What's the tempo of your thinking? What rhythm, what internal rhythm are you aspiring towards to get you started? How are you feeling? What is the emotion that you're going to feel when you're executing these tasks? Emotion is very important in imagery because we get incredibly distracted by how we feel. Your focus will shift to your thinking no matter what you try and do. It's a biological response. How is it going to feel to do what I want to do when I feel the way that I'm feeling? And the last one, perspective. So usually if you imagine from a first-person perspective, they always say, oh, that's the best. Some people prefer to see themselves from the mind's eye of the audience. And I used to do this when I was practicing. I would imagine in first person when I had to move my hands, very specific things to, according to how I had to move. But for me, actually, external perspective was also useful. I used to pretend during the bits that I knew how to play it really well. I didn't have to think about any specific technical cues. I used to imagine being an audience member sitting there and thinking, wow, that's actually quite nice. So you can imagine yourself moving from a third-person perspective as well as a first-person perspective. But it all comes down to how do you think you're going to do it in performance? And how can you imagine this in such a way that you think of everything that you will feel, you think of everything that you will think, and you try and work that into the preparation. Now, everything I've said, if you imagine yourself doing that in a pre-performance routine, so we're walking on, you even smell that creaky, you hear the creaking of the floors backstage, you hear that theater smell that I always smell. And right before it's about to peak. Now imagine what happens if you now switch back to that vision element that we talked about. If you now focus on that image you came up with that had all those elements in it, and notice the difference in focus from having a very targeted performance-based preparation focus with all those little elements, and we're going to train it and we're going to practice it. And now you have an example of where you can bring the vision in. We've done all the work, we've done all the prep, and now I want to focus on communication, on vision. I'm not going to sit there and go, which fingering was it, which word was it, where am I? None of that. So when do we go specific? Usually in learning. When do we go broad? Usually, most of the time, artistic performance, well-rehearsed artistic performance tends to work really well when we focus on vision, meaning, communication. All right, so I think it's time for me to open up for some questions. I hope there are some questions. If not, or if you think of questions later on, my email, I'll leave my email with the panel, and you can always email me personally, or I think my details should be on the website of Independent Venues. Yeah, that's all for me. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest in performance psychology, and I wish you all of you, all the very best.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Ellis. That was great. Now we're going to go over to Eric from Music Support, who's going to demonstrate the Thrive Wellbeing app.
Thanks, Aidan. And good afternoon, everybody. My name's Eric Muscians. I'm the Managing Director at Music Support. In case you're not familiar with, we're a peer-led mental health and addiction charity operating in the music industry, giving services and accessing services available for all professionals working in the industry. We have 5 core services that we deliver. The helpline, which is Monday to Friday, where you can phone and speak to a peer who's trained and to support and non-judgmental and confidential service. And we can help with signposting and supporting people through the journey of where they need to get to. Every week on a Monday, we host an online support group for anyone that's in 12-step fellowship. It's a support group. Newcomers welcome. We also have Thrive app, which you're going to hear a little bit about now. And we deliver mental health first aid training. We do that online as well as in person. Obviously not just yet in person. We're not quite back yet, but we can deliver online now. And normally during the summer, as many of you all know, we'll be at backstage at festivals supporting peer workers, backstage, health promotion, and again, just providing really safe spaces where people can speak to industry peers regarding mental health and or addiction. So this session is very specific. It's to highlight a relatively new initiative for music support, which we started 3 months ago in response to COVID crisis, lockdown, and thinking about post-lockdown, what would music support be able to offer that could help the landscape and support industry peers through this difficult moment in time. And Thrive, in a nutshell, is a NHS-approved app which is designed for prevention, early detection and management of anxiety, depression, and stress, and common mental ill health conditions. And Thrive is, as a business model in itself, the actual company Thrive is a social enterprise which was set up in 2012. It was set up by a consultant psychiatrist, consultant clinical psychologist, and the games developer from Tomb Raider, believe it or not. But really the aim of that curious coalition, if you like, was twofold. One, to prevent people from having to get to the stage of needing hospital. And secondly, really to help a vast number of people and being proactive about it. How do you do that? And using technology as an opportunity to do that through this app. So for 4 years, between 2012, 2016, Thrive worked with UCL and the University of Roehampton, where they did, I believe, about 4 clinical research trials which were created on the app. And in 2016, the app was launched as the first NHS-approved app for the prevention, early detection, and support and management with mental health and well-being. And it's something important to stress before I show a video, which I'm about to, that this app isn't a replacement for crisis services. Crisis services are obviously very instrumental, but this is plays a really important part in the landscape in terms of prevention and accessibility to support services. The app comes with a function of text-based coaching where people can gain support in real time. There are currently 3.1 million users of Thrive app worldwide. Thrive work with many partners across many different industries, and they're working with music support in particular to get this accessible within the music industry. We have music support. We fundraise in order to make it accessible and give away some licenses for free. And there'll be information about that which will be posted during the course of our session this afternoon. And we really want you to visit the website and download and use and to share with peers. And so by the wonders of modern technology, I'm going to share screen now and show you a video which lasts about 20 minutes and then give you an opportunity maybe to answer some questions at the end if you have any questions regarding the app.
Version of the app that we built for music support. As you can see at the bottom in the middle, there's their logo there. Now, organizations do have a choice to put their own logo there and get some of their own branding in here, but this is obviously the one that we built for music support specifically. As I've mentioned, the app is positioned as a prevention and early detection tool. Really, it's a library of life skills that all of us can learn and practice to build resilience and stop us from being unwell in the first place. And it goes down to all the more common things that we'll all may face. So it's not just about anxiety and depression. They're the things that happen when someone doesn't address the early stage stresses they're dealing with. So what we want people to do is deal with those early stage stresses so they don't go further down the line. So all of these techniques in here are clinically effective and evidence-based. You've probably heard of a lot of them before. So the core of the app is this CBT program, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. And we know typically, well, I know that CBT is the treatment that you're referred on to when you are unwell. And that's what it was with me. I was diagnosed with depression and told to go through CBT therapy. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy is just as effective when it's taught as a prevention tool. So that evidence exists. There's enough evidence there to show that, but typically there's not enough people to train CBT in every human being, and therefore it's only provided to the point of need. What we've done with our CBT program is built it into 26 sessions. All the sessions are between 2 minutes and 7 minutes long. And the idea is that we're teaching this sort of life skill of what CBT is and how your emotions and thoughts and behaviors are all connected, and how you can then use those learnings to change how you react to things, change how a stressful situation affects you, change how your response to things occurs. All of these sorts of natural things that we can all deal with and learn from. Now, there's no set way to prescribe this program either. It's not like we have to say at 8 a.m. every morning, you must do one of these sessions for a period of 26 days. It's not like that. Obviously, it's a course of learning. So just like riding a bike, if you do it every day, you're going to learn quicker than what you are if you do it once a week. Simple as that. But the idea is that this should fit in around your life, not that you have to find time for it, if that makes sense. It shouldn't be built in as part of your routine. You just find the time that you've got free and when it suits you to use this sort of program. The other techniques are based on mindfulness. So I'm someone that's never been able to meditate, but meditation is obviously a very, very popular technique. We know that apps like Headspace and Calm are very popular apps, and they're brilliant for meditation. I'm never going to say a bad word about them at all. But they're quite limited in that they just offer meditation. And we know that there are lots of other ways to be mindful outside of meditation that can be more effective for people. So these 5 techniques here are all sort of either mind-based or body-based relaxation exercises. Calm breathing and deep muscle are body-based relaxation exercises. With calm breathing, what we're teaching is to learn a diaphragmatic breathing process, which is 3 seconds in, 3 seconds hold, 3 seconds out. And if you repeat that over a period of time, there's science that obviously shows that the impact that can have on the chemical balance in your body and sort of improve that relaxing sensation across you. So that's a very powerful technique in particular, calm breathing. Very simple one to get involved with as well. And deep muscle is another technique that I find very effective. It's more of a link between the muscles and the mind. And what we learn with this technique is to sort of learn where the tension is in our body. So I'm someone that I often find that my shoulders are very tense behind me. I don't realize I'm doing it, but my neck and my shoulders are tensed up. And I sort of have to think and stop and relax it down, and you feel obviously less tense when you do that. What deep muscle is a 7-minute session where you tense and relax different muscle groups in your body from your head to your toe, and it's a technique that ends with you sort of feeling that whole relaxation sense all across your body. This one's very, very helpful for sleep in particular, deep muscle relaxation. We find that one's one of the techniques that gets used most by people who are struggling to sleep. Meditation. Bit more awareness around what meditation is. Obviously, it's a mindful technique that helps you focus your thoughts on one thing, forgetting what's around you and just focusing on the here and now, not letting those extra thoughts bother you. They are there. We're aware that they're there, but they're not going to bother us. That's the sort of process that we're going through here with meditation. And we offer different types of meditation sessions so that you can get involved in different parts of it and learn the different things that might be more helpful to you. We take you on a guide, we take you on a course, and once you've mastered meditation, you can then go through the unguided meditation, which is where you become a bit of a master at it, and you can do it without someone telling you and guiding you through the course. Self-suggestion, another mindfulness technique that is, some people, my colleague Alyssa, used to live in Greece, and she used to find that one thing that would help her feel relaxed was taking a walk along the beach in the evenings if she felt stressed. And that sort of visualization that she has on the beach and that relaxing image, she's able to then use in her mind. If you close your eyes and think of that relaxing image, it can make you feel relaxed. It's the same sort of principle. And that's what self-suggestion is. It's thinking of a word or an image or a place that you can then think of in your mind and impart that relaxation feeling that you get when you're there across your body, basically. Again, it's a bit of a process that you have to learn and practice at, but it's a very powerful tool for a lot of people. The last one is applied relaxation. So where I live in Hertfordshire, just north of London, the wait time for a course of applied relaxation on the NHS is 7 months as of today. Applied relaxation is one of the best forms of support for anxiety and panic disorders and nerves and that sort of thing. And again, what we've done here is we've taught this what applied relaxation is into these different sessions here. So the steps you have to go through, it's just like a learning process, a bit like the CBT program, but it's a very powerful tool once you start learning and going through the applied relaxation course, because it can help you induce that relaxing state that you get from deep muscle relaxation within 30 seconds, wherever you are. That one's a bit of a real sort of life skill, a life hack that anyone can learn and practice. Really powerful tool, that one. But the idea here is there's lots of different content, lots of different pieces of content in here for different people. We don't have one user of the app that uses every single technique in here, I don't think. People tend to find the one or two that works for them and they'll focus on practicing them basically. But the reason why there's lots in there is because people need choice when it comes to this sort of thing. Everyone's different, everyone responds differently, and that's why we have all the different techniques. Now, they're always being updated, they're always changing and developing, so every month you'll see things that are going in there that are new. As I say, everything that we do put in here is evidence-based, and it has at least 10 years worth of evidence behind it before we include it in the app. Everything in the app is also used in clinical practice today with patients, so none of it's just what we think is a good idea. Now that's all the content, there's over 100 hours in there, but it gets a bit more clever with the mood meter in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And this is where we can start to be a lot more sort of powerful with individual users, really. So let's say, let's put some context behind it. Maybe I am an employee of a company and I have finished work or my shift, or I'm on tour and I've finished my show for that night and I've opened up the app and I felt anxious about something that's happened today. Now, how intense were those moods? Very subjective question, but it helps us understand how that particular person is feeling. So let's say my anxiety was really high today. What was the situation? Maybe it was something at work that happened to me. A bit more detail. Maybe I felt like it was something to do with my peers, and there was a deadline that we weren't going to meet, and that was making me feel particularly anxious. Now, before I move on, I'm just going to say this part of the app, or the whole app actually, is completely confidential to each individual user. We treat the data in the app as if it was a patient medical record. So nothing is shared. The data is owned by the individual user, not by Thrive or Music Support or any other company. And this is completely confidential to the user, this part. No one can see what someone's putting in here. They can press add a custom bubble, type something in, and that then will then appear as a new bubble that becomes more personal to them. But the idea is once we've sort of pinpointed this situation we're in, I'm really anxious because of work, because of a deadline with my peers. What the app then does is one of two things. I've given it a situation and I've told it how I'm feeling. Now, if I was in front of a GP or any healthcare professional and I'd done the same thing, that healthcare professional would want to help me. So because I said that my anxiety, well, first of all, I was experiencing anxiety, that's a negative emotion, and that my anxiety was particularly high today. It was right up near the top of that scale. Because I said that, the app is now automatically asking me a set of questions called the PHQ-9 and the GAD-7. Now, if I said that I was okay and I was happy or I had a negative mood, but it wasn't too bad, the app wouldn't ask me these questions. It's responsive based on what I'm putting in here already, and it will only ask me these if the app deems that I may be experiencing symptoms of something a bit more serious here. So if I went to my GP and said that I felt crap, I didn't feel good, these are the exact same questions the GP would give me. And the earlier we can ask an individual to complete these questions, the earlier we can detect the symptoms. So rather than wait for someone like me, it took me 18 months to finally go and see the GP or call someone about how I was feeling. If we can ask these questions of an individual in the evening, within a couple of hours of them experiencing something, we can give them a result. And the result may say mild, moderate, or severe symptoms of anxiety and depression that we believe are going on. And this scale is based on NHS recommendations, so it's all very clinically validated. But depending on how the user answers those questions, we've worked with Music Support to customize the message that comes beneath it. So for example, if I answered the questions and it did say that I was experiencing symptoms of moderate anxiety, the message beneath there may be that we recommend the individual calls the crisis line at Music Support or the helpline. And there'll be a button that the user can press, that once they press that button once, it dials out from their phone automatically and connects them with someone. We put charities in there, we put all sorts of different support options in there. The idea being that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter how you're feeling, there is an option for extra support that you can go straight to speak to someone immediately. That's the idea. We don't want people waiting around, not knowing where to go, who to contact. Let's make it really simple for people. That's the whole point. Now, as I said, if I felt good, I felt happy, everything was okay in that mood meter, this is the screen I would see. It would skip those questions and it would just give me my goals for the day. But we'll come back to this shortly, because I just want to show you the progress first of all, which is down near the bottom left-hand corner. Along that taskbar at the bottom, there's progress. Now, everything we do is tracked and saved in this app. Every time we complete that mood meter, one of these orange dots appears on this graph, and it'll track my mood over time. Each time I do it, it records the date that I've done it. So as you can see, on the 13th of May, I felt good, and today I don't feel so good. And it will show you that over time as to how that user's felt. If I click on an orange dot, it'll show the situation I was in, my PHQ-9 and GED7 results, and anything I may have completed in the app today as well. Now, this is not just powerful because a user can see how they're feeling and track their mood, which we know is a very important thing when it comes to recovery in particular, but because a user owns this data, they can ask Thrive to send it to them as a PDF, request it, delete it, move it, whatever the user wants to do with it. Now, from personal experience, I can say that I believe that this would be very, very helpful. I know that when I was struggling and seeking support, the first conversation that you have to have with someone is why you're feeling the way you're feeling, how long it's been going on for, and all the rest of it. The data that we collect here, basically. So rather than having to try and remember for the fourth or fifth time when you're speaking to a new person how you've been feeling, why you've been feeling that way, you can take this as a PDF. And it's a much easier way for someone to say to someone, this is how I've been feeling, here's everything unloaded off of my brain, basically. Much easier way for someone to get support. So the goals, top right-hand corner. We just came out of the goals, so I'll go back into them. Each day we assign these different goals for the user. The goals relate to things that I'm involved in the app already, so it doesn't recommend me on my personal version meditation, for example, but it does recommend me deep muscle relaxation. And it'll also recommend something to do with exercise or socializing each day. So that's the have a dance session tonight. We can change that around. Maybe we want to go for a 60-minute walk instead. And you can then set reminders that will give you notifications on your phone at the time you set to complete the goal that you've specified. So maybe I want to go for a walk at 8 o'clock tonight. I could set that notification, press OK, and I then get an alert at 8 o'clock to remind me to complete that walk. Once you've completed a goal, you get these Thrive points. Hooray! So everything you do in the app, you get these Thrive points for. You get these bonuses you can see now for the, more often you use the app. As you come in every day, your bonuses go up. And it's just a reward system that sort of gamifies it a little bit more. Your Thrive points total up in the top left-hand corner. I've got 3,450 on my user profile at the moment. Anything that you do in the app, you get those Thrive points for. Whether it's a session of CBT, a meditation session, whatever it is, you get Thrive points for it. And you can then spend those Thrive points in the activities section down near the bottom right-hand corner. So the principle is by doing things that are going to be positive for you, you're generating points that you can use. Now, currently those points can be spent in the Wise Words game. I won't go into it in too much detail, but Wise Words there's over 1,000 levels. It's a word search game that rewards you for finding positive words, but not for finding negative words. So it's just a distraction therapy game similar to the adult mindfulness colouring, and it can distract your mind from the anxious thoughts you're having, and is also shown to be able to shift your cognitive bias to look for more positive things when you're in a bit of a negative mind frame. But really, so far as the user is concerned, it's just a light touch word search game. The messages, this is how we send notifications to other people. So one of the things we learned through one of our research trials was that when we sent people notifications to the app, it used to annoy them and people would delete the app. So we don't do that anymore, obviously. We let users send each other notifications. So first of all, you choose your nickname. Obviously, this is to protect anonymity, so no one knows who you are. It's just a bit of fun. You can choose whatever you want. I don't know why I'm taking it seriously. It can be whatever you want it to be. Space Laser Monkey. You then choose a postcard. Maybe I want to go for that blue one. And then you choose a pre-written positive message. So you can't write your own abusive thing in here. There's nothing nasty that can go in. It's all protected and all pre-written by Thrive. Once you've selected a positive message, you press send. And now someone somewhere in the world will have a notification on their device from the Space Laser Monkey with that positive message on them for the day. It's just a nice way to spread a bit of joy to people. You get your Thrive points for it, and the circle continues. Now, the next thing to be released is this community feature. The community brings together everyone under music support or any organisation that we work with under one community, basically. So a bit of context around it. Let me use music support as an example. Every user that uses the music support version of the app will be listed within the music support community. They won't know who they are. You'll just see their nicknames in the app. But I might see that one person has 10,000 Thrive points, one person has 6,000, and you can see, who's got the most points and whatnot. Thrive then sets a target every month to that community to generate points. And it might be that the target is 100,000 Thrive points per month. And everyone in that community works together by using the app themselves and generating their own Thrive points, which go in that total pot for everyone. Once that target's been achieved, Thrive are looking at ways to provide a way to give back to the community. So it's likely to be that we're going to be able to provide free licenses back to music support or some system whereby we know that by a user using the app and generating points, those points are going to be donated to a charity to support people that may not be able to access this otherwise. So there's that whole giving back thing there, that behavior change about, we know that people are motivated to help other people more than they are to help themselves. And if you know that by using this app, you're going to be able to help other people, all the better. It's a win-win for everyone. The music support box at the bottom in the middle, this is where music support have embedded all the services that are available to any user 24/7, basically. So if you are a user of music support, you haven't got to go online and find all these different guides and different people that you can contact for different things. It's all built into this support box here, and it's a list of services that people can contact. So the helpline, I could press a button. I'm not going to do it now because it will dial out. But if I were to press that button, it would connect me with a music support helpline between Monday and Friday, 9 till 5. And that's the idea. It's a one-stop click for anything that the user may need to access. Lastly is the live coaching, bottom left-hand corner. Now, this is a bit of a game changer. This is the first service like this that exists globally. We're really proud to be working with music support on it. It is something that we feel is going to have a huge benefit. And since lockdown started, just from our current users of the system, we've seen a 329% increase on the usage of the live coaching in particular. So it's showing just how valuable this service is to a lot of people at the moment. When you go onto it for the first time, it asks your name, because when you sign up to the app, all we ask for is an email address, a password, and an access code. We don't ask for any other information. You don't have to give your real name here. I could put Joe Blogs, but I won't. I'll put Simon J. Done, save. Right, so this live coaching platform can be used in two ways. It's available to every user of the app, no matter what your circumstance or situation. The first way is it can be reactive. So through that mood meter that we did earlier, if someone screens positive for anxiety or depression in that mood meter, they won't just get a result with support services to contact. Within 30 seconds of them screening positive, they'll have a message proactively from one of our coaches. Now, our coaches are a team of qualified psychologists. They're not there in the app to provide therapy directly, but they are qualified psychologists because if someone says they feel suicidal, for example, they know how to safely respond to them. The idea behind the service is that we will proactively react when a user shows signs and symptoms of anxiety and depression, because we know that text-based services like this seem to be more accessible to people. It's harder to pick up the phone sometimes and start a conversation than it is to text someone. So this service looks like WhatsApp or iMessage or just a text messaging feature on your phone, but it's built into the app. And we'll send a message through there to start a chat window with that user and try and help them to coach them around to feel more confident about getting support. So that chat might go on for a few days. It might be back and forth several times of the user saying, no, do you know what, I don't feel confident about getting support. I've tried before and it didn't work for me. And our coach will say, well, yeah, but there's always another opportunity. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And their role is to make that user feel confident about getting the support that they need. There's no limits or caps on that service. It can be used unlimited by all the users. The only cap is it's Monday to Friday, 8 AM to 8 PM currently. But it is a global service. It's just in those opening times in the UK. So that's one way. It's a safety net way there that we can catch people who are showing signs and symptoms and be proactive in engaging them to get further support. That doesn't exist. There's nothing else like that, because typically you can just write how you're feeling in a diary and put it under your bed. There's nothing that can proactively reach out to someone confidentially and support them in that way. The other way it can be used is proactively by anyone at any time. So I can go in here, request a live chat, type something in, and again, within an average of 30 seconds, one of our guys will be back in touch with that user directly. It could be that I'm asking, I feel really down at the moment. I've been feeling it for a few days and I don't know what to do. And our guys will then speak to me and help me feel confident again, and who I need to go to support and do a risk assessment and all of those things. It could be that I want to ask advice about my friend or my family member or my colleague. We see that a lot, people asking for support for their sons or daughters or wives or husbands or whoever it may be. It can be used by anyone for anything to do with mental health, basically. What it's not is a crisis line. It's not a therapy line, but it's an advocate, a coach, a support tool, a confidential person that you can contact to get support whenever you need it, basically.
Hello again, and thank you for listening. We launched the Thrive app initiative, music support, launched just under 3 months ago, and we've been overwhelmed with the response. There have been over 1,000 users currently at last count, and we launched with partners, the Brit Trust, the BPI, Help Musicians as well have been instrumental in getting this up and running too. So you can access it currently for free via music support. If you visit your Android store or Google Android store or Apple store, you need a unique code to do that, which is music20. But we'll circulate during the course of this afternoon information about that. But it's as simple as going to your store and downloading the app and then typing in a code, and you can get free access. And that's access to the version which comes with coaching, text-based coaching, and is live for 12 months. Free access for a limited time. So between now and September, we're able to do that to support people. So does anybody have any questions? Right, one question that's come in: do you find that people have to create split personalities to deal with their anxieties? That's a question I can't respond to because I'm not a clinician expert in that area to deal with that particular one, and not best placed to. But perhaps if that's someone that's reaching out and would like some further advice, that's something that we can pick up offline. Any other questions? Okay. If there are no immediate questions now, then perhaps there might be things that come up in the Q&A. So thank you for listening, and I'll hand back over to Aidan.
Thanks, Eric. That was great. I'm one of those 3.1 million worldwide users, and I do recommend it to a lot of people. It's a really fantastic app. We're now going across to Claire Cordeau from Bapam, who's going to talk a little bit more about where you can access help.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm just going to put some slides up so that we can talk through this. So bear with me while I work out how to do it. Here we go. See that now. Is that all right? Can everyone see? Can somebody tell me, because I can't. I can only see the slides now. Okay, so well, I was blown away actually by the app and also by Ellis's presentation on using imagery. Both of those techniques seem to me to be incredibly helpful for supporting well-being and mental health, and it's brilliant to know that I'm pleased to have taken away some of those techniques, and the app sounds fantastic, so I really recommend people take that away. What I wanted to do is just to summarize really some of the services that are available to the industry and people working in the industry and performers around well-being and mental health, both mostly from our 3 different organisations, but of course there are a number of other organisations who can support as well. And I think the first thing I wanted to say is that as I think we've alluded to, mental health is a cyclical thing. It's not a disease you catch and then you cure it and that's off, although it can be. But it's something that very often we live with. Mental health can be a positive thing, it can be a negative thing, but there are different phases to it and different services and different support mechanisms we might need as we move through those different phases. And people listening who've had mental health issues will know about that. So I've tried to describe that in terms of cogs, and that you can spend a lot of your life keeping mentally well, and that's really great. But sometimes you move into this process where you recognize that you have a problem and you really need to seek help at that point, and you need some services. But following using services, using some of the apps that are available, some of the techniques that you've learned, you can then move back into keeping mentally well. So I've wanted to use that as a sort of vision, if you like, of how we want to think about the services that are available at each point. So first of all, thinking about keeping mentally well, we advocate learning a mental health practicing and using it very specifically. But of course, there are lots of things that help you keep mentally well. Physical activity, getting sleep, good diet, keeping socially connected, paying attention to your environment, developing new skills. You probably know a lot of these things. They are very general. This is general advice about keeping mentally well. But of course, in this industry, there are some very specific things. And I think Ellis's practice was particularly speaking to that. So that was very helpful. And if you want to access more support around that, then Bapam offers free online workshops. These are webinars to understand how to keep mentally well. You can access them through our website. There are also a number of different fact sheets and resources. So do go and download those. They are free. The Thrive app we've heard about, fantastic. And also Music Support offer mental health first aid. And I think that's particularly helpful for people who and organisations who are looking at not just trying to keep individuals healthy, but also looking after each other. So spotting when there is a problem and helping people to take action. And Music Support offer those courses. They are generically available, but the courses that Music Support offer are very specifically targeted to musicians and people working in the industry. So that's the first thing. That's all about keeping mentally well. The next bit is about recognizing a problem and seeking help. And some of the things that we talk about in our training is how to recognize when you've got a problem. But the kind of key thing is, as soon as you think, oh, maybe I do have a bit of an issue, get help then. Don't wait until it's got really, really bad. Don't think, well, perhaps I haven't really. Maybe it'll go away. Go and get some help as soon as you can. And if it's a crisis matter, or you think 10 o'clock at night, you're thinking, wow, I really do need some help now. Then Music Minds Matter is a 24/7 helpline. You can phone that number, talk to somebody at the end of the phone who will help you through that moment and then get you thinking about what you're going to do next. Music Support is the same, 9 to 5 helpline. And Bapam also offers free clinical consultation. So if you get to the point where you think, I really need to talk to somebody about this issue, I've tried various things myself, but I want to talk to a clinician, we can offer free clinical consultation with clinicians who have a background in treating performing artists, in working with performing artists. Many of them are themselves performing artists, so they understand the sector. And you can call that number, or you can email info@Bapam in order to get access to that. And that, again, gets you on the road to knowing what to do. And then when you need to use services, there is the Bapam Directory of Practitioners. That's a group of practitioners, there's over 200 of them now, who specialise in working with people in the industry. And so there's information about them, their phone numbers, what sort of things that they do. Help Musicians can also offer funding support, and there are other organisations that will help with funding support if you know you need to go independently to use those services. And also Music Support offer online 12-step support, particularly around addictions. So there's a lot of help out there, but what I haven't mentioned, of course, is the NHS. The NHS is our main health provider, and don't ignore it. I know it's been a bit hard to access at the moment, but it is there. Services are available. I would advocate using the Wellbeing services to keep yourself well, but also making sure that when you do access support, if it's private support, which you've managed to find funding for, that you use it as complementary to the NHS. Because if you do have a mental health problem that is likely to reoccur in your life at some point, it's very helpful to have somebody from your GP who has a record of what's going on for you, and will be able to step in and help also when there's a crisis. So I think the key message that we wanted to give to everyone is about doing your best to keep mentally well. It's a really challenging time, as Aidan pointed out and described so well at the beginning. If you can use some of the resources available to keep mentally well, then I think that will be really helpful, and it will help you going forward. But if you do have a problem, these organisations are here to help you. Okay, thanks very much indeed for listening to that. I'll pass back to Aidan now, who will be able to lead a Q&A.
Thanks, Claire. I'm sure that everyone listening right now would have found that really useful. I think we've got the whole panel back, almost back. Hi, everyone. Look at this. This is great. We've got a few questions that have come in through the course of the session, which I'll ask now. We have got a little bit of time, and maybe a little bit more than I expected. So if you're watching and you've got any questions that you want to ask, then pop them in the comments and they'll come through to us. The first one I've got here has come through from Jeff, and I'm going to direct it to you, if that's all right, Alice. Oh, look at that. We've got it on the screen and everything.
Excellent.
What a day.
Cool.
Okay, so do you find that people have to create split personalities to deal with their anxieties?
Great. Thanks a lot, Aidan. And thank you, Jeffrey, for that question, because it's a very, very relevant question that I know a lot of performers struggle with. So I'm going to answer it from different facets, because it's actually touching on a huge underlying topic. First of all, it relies on people thinking of themselves as one set block of personality, and then their persona as something completely different, something they just came up with, and they're going to act and behave like they're something disingenuous to themselves. And really, there's no such thing, really. So if you look into the theories of things like self-concept theory, they essentially say we're always running a self-script. I'm now showing you the self-script of Ellis doing a webinar. I'm not behaving the way I behave if my friends came in with, pizza and we were going to watch Netflix. I'm going to start behaving differently because the context changes. And this also relies on a very outdated idea of what personality is. So very old personality science used to think, well, we are who we are, and that's pretty much it. And more recent personality research has actually said, you know what? People behave differently in different contexts. And personality is more described as a set of characteristics that can predict how you're going to respond in a particular way. Some elements are stable. So some elements of you will be there when you're young and when you're older, and will be there maybe in your persona, and others change through time. So when it comes specifically to performers, I've always been very fascinated with self-concept, because, for example, what can happen is this can be so deeply rooted that they say to me, I can't play this bar for the life of me. I'm stuck. I don't have the technique to play this bar. That's just what it is. I'm crap. I can't do this. And if I do an imagery technique with them where they have to pretend that they are their idol, I just say, okay, do you know what? You're cast as another person. You are your idol in a documentary. We're going to overlay different footage. It doesn't matter if you get it right, get it wrong, but you are not you. You're that other person. They can nail a technical bar. And, you know, what is it really? It's people thinking, I am the kind of person who ... And then we execute that script. So I'm the kind of person who cannot do this bar. Therefore, I will get in my own way and make sure that I'm the kind of person who does not play this bar. So in that sense, persona is actually a way of bypassing how we sabotage ourselves with our own self-script. And I always think of Shakespeare, you know, that famous quote that says, the world's a stage and we're all players. Because we're always in some sort of persona, showing some sides of ourselves and not in other sides. And inability to show different sides of yourself is also considered a marker for personality disorders, by the way. So we have to show different parts of ourselves. And I want to finish my rant here, because I could go on for hours about this. I'm clearly very excited about this whole persona. I have never seen a single performer who is not in some way linked to that persona. And I'm going to quote a comedian that did an amazing, it really changed my mind about this quite early on. He said, we think of persona as something different, but that's not what it is. He said, you find the bit of yourself that is most suitable for this art, and then you amplify it. And that completely, I think that hit the nail on the head. So he used himself as an example to me. He said, look, for example, me, I'm not an arrogant jerk, but my humor is very arrogant jerk humor. So he said, I find the bit in myself, I find that little arrogant jerkiness, and I just make it big. So I feel like I'm a part of me, but it's not really me. And those personas work the best anyway, because they feel authentic. It really is a part of that person, but it's never the whole person, because we're never the whole person anyway. It would be really awkward to always be the full spectrum of personality in all contexts. So I would like people to think about it in terms of, what is the little part of me living inside of me that is going to be best suited and exaggerated to carry this art? For me personally, I always wrote very dark music, and it worked very well. I just went into that sort of very dramatic, big, bombastic darkness. And, you know, that's only a part of me. That's the person I become when I write my stuff and when I perform my stuff. But it was very believable because it's real. But it doesn't have to be all of you. It's just a part of you. If that makes sense. Okay. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Ellen. I thought that was a great answer and a really interesting question from Jeff there as well. We've had another one come in here from Dom. I actively encourage my team and myself to try and stay off my phone, as I see it as another form of addiction. Any signposting for practical tips for managing team dynamics in a venue situation? From our perspective at Help Musicians, a lot of our support is tailored to individuals' circumstances and needs. So I haven't got much on the team dynamics section. I think Claire earlier mentioned the mental health first aid training, which is available through music support. And I'd recommend that to sort of any group of people working together, or not for that case. I think that's well worth checking out. Or should we go to Claire and then Eric?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really interesting issue, I think, that you've brought up, and thinking about how you manage your organisation, how you manage your team for mental health, for wellness, is not something that we necessarily, if you've ever had any management training, it doesn't usually cover that. It talks about job descriptions and getting the job done, and if you've done the job, then that's that, and if you've made the money you needed to make, then that's that, and if everyone's gone away happy, then you're fine. Doesn't actually talk about how you encourage mental health in your organization. And I think that's one of the things that the mental health first aid course, and I'm sure Eric will talk about that in a minute, is very helpful. It's helping people to think that through. But you raise a really good issue about staying off phones, about contact with social media. I mean, before all of this happened, before we were all remote, that was still a big issue, I think, in our industry, because there's so much. I mean, Ellis was talking about personas. There's so much about your persona which is online, and that brings its own stresses. Keeping in touch online becomes something that you get driven to do. So trying to put some boundaries around that is incredibly helpful for your mental health. And then thinking about your team dynamics and making sure that you've organized your workplace in this sort of bizarre remote type of world that we're living in, to keep people mentally well, to make sure that they're okay, because if they're not okay, they're not going to be able to do their job, and if they can't do their job, you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. So I think both of those two areas are incredibly helpful to think about, and I think to manage, to make part of the management task of running a team, of running an organization, of doing a job. We don't normally plan for that. We've done a bit of work on where the main risks are in how people get sick in the first place in the industry, and it's partly about yourself and keeping yourself well, but it's also about the kind of environment that you're in and the things that can trigger you to not be well. And then it's about the events that happen. And it's the combination of all of those things. So we've talked very much about how you can individually keep yourself well and what you should do to try and to try and manage that, and where you can go if you're not well. But we haven't dealt with at all the way in which organizations and teams can help each other to keep well, and what the little risks are that that people aren't aware of. And I know from working with actors that sometimes they're really tiny things, like not knowing who's in charge of which bit. So you can't go and say, actually, I don't feel really comfortable about this, because there's just no one to tell it to. And then that creates a bigger stress. And that's a little thing, and it's probably has completely bypassed everybody, that it's something that needs to be tackled. But actually, that it's those sorts of things that that cause the stress. So I think it's a really important area to have a look at. Shall I hand over to Eric now?
Thank you, Claire. You did mention there mental health first aid training, which I think is a useful foundational, I think, initial kind of first step in the right direction, because it's not just about being a first responder and being reactive, but it's also about being, if you want, a champion and a kind of cultural ambassador, which is about tackling that cultural aspect to it. But there is, and certainly one other organisation I can speak to and recommend worth checking out, which is one of our founders of the charity, Sam Parker. Sam Parker Consulting. She runs her own consultancy, and essentially she works with businesses and groups within the industry. She's got an industry background. She's a trained counsellor as well, but she's got particularly keen to kind of work with businesses long term on that, and she's very good at that. So again, I'll find a way of sharing that, a website, so you can at least look at that. So to plug that one as an option.
Could I just throw in a very short practical thing that I remember from a workshop I attended on this. The task switching element that's involved in phones, and you're absolutely right, Dom, it does have an addictive quality on the brain, because there is a bit of dopamine release and things going on. So you are actually right, it is addictive. But the thing that makes it the most addictive is that it relies on random reinforcement. And if you want to, if you're a bit of a nerd like me, random reinforcement is the most addictive kind of reinforcement. So random reinforcement is what we have in gambling, and phones work in the same way. So you never know when it's going to come. Is it today? Am I going to hit the jackpot? Is it good news? Is it bad news? What about now? Did my phone go off? Is there a message? Is there not a message? So that element is the most addictive one. And if there would be a way of making it more similar to physical mail, as in I go out in the morning, I check the mail, whatever is in there, I don't know, but I know that that's when I open the mail. So if maybe with your team, if there is a way of compartmentalizing when important messages get sent around, and especially now with working from home, you know, that it doesn't happen after 5 p.m. or it doesn't happen on a Sunday night or whatever, but to get that random reinforcement element out of it, so people know now is the time that messages arrive on my phone, and we all go and check our messages. Yeah, hope that maybe helps as well.
That sounds good. The only other thing that springs to mind for me are those sort of apps where you can limit the time that you're sort of able to use your screen and stuff like that. I haven't got much experience of those. I don't know if other people do. Yeah, Eric's a big fan by the looks of it. So yeah, might be worth something to check out there as well.
It's just the general principle of actually, which is being empowered to turn off the screen for a while, or to actually put an out of office and say, I'm only checking emails between these hours. And you know, it's modeling what you want to see other people do. And it's difficult because it's a hard road, because the reality of it is we're in an industry where you're on call all the time usually. And even in this curious season, there's just other things that we're dealing with where it feels like for a lot of people, even busier in a stranger kind of way, just because they're dealing with a lot more of the emotional and psychological aspects, as well as the thinking about how can we shift our business and change, you know, and survive. So actually the discipline actually of this is good for me, actually, the personal allowance that this is good for me, and it will help others too.
Getting lots of interest, I think, in the Thrive app, and lots of just really positive feedback about it by the looks of it. But one asking sort of what feedback you've had so far about how people are finding it, that sort of 1,000 odd people.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early days, but essentially, I mean, the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive. Just in terms of particularly the CBT feature has been a real highlight, the most consistent positive feedback about the app, and just people learning and understanding about it from a sense of a life skill that can be really helpful, or life skills, set of life skills. We've also, we don't see individualized data, but as a charity, what it helps for our services, anonymized kind of aggregated results. So we got a sense of how many people are screening positive or negative for whether that be anxiety or depression. And we do know that there are people that, one, are screening for those areas, are recovering as well, even at quite early on, the more mild end of the scale. And we also know as well that people are using the signposting resources as well, which is really particularly encouraging. You know, we don't work in isolation. We work very closely with Bapam and yourselves that help musicians, and there's so many others, and PRS Members Fund and Musicians Union and PSA. And so, you know, it's really important to know and feel a sense that actually people are being looked after elsewhere, and they are using those resources and they're pulling on that. So long may that continue, and it's, you know, the longevity of it will only time will tell. But the initial signs, first 3 months, extremely positive. People are benefiting from it, people are using it, and then people are recovering as a result of it.
That's really, really great to hear. We're sort of coming towards the end now. Has anyone got any sort of final thoughts or reflections they'd like to share? In that case, then I'll wrap it up. Finally, massive thanks to Independence Day and Independent Venue Week for having us. Like, this is the first one of these I've done remotely, and it's been one of the best I've done. It's been great. And of course, massive thanks to Claire from Bapam, Eric from Music Support, Joanne from Music Support, and Ellis from Bapam. Like, great sessions all across the board. I know I've got a lot out of that, and I'm sure everyone watching will have as well. So thanks for being here, everybody. Yeah, thanks for your time. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.